Your brain is lying to you right now. It's feeding you a constant stream of information about the world around you, but a huge portion of that data is a complete fabrication. We're going to show you the mechanism behind this internal forgery and how it explains why some people can learn skills without ever practicing them. And chances are, this biological quirk is the single biggest thing holding you back from goals you've been chasing for years. Right now, picture a bright yellow lemon. See the bumpy texture of its skin. Now imagine slicing it in half with a sharp knife. Hear the sound. See the juice bead up on the cut surface. Finally, bring that lemon half up to your mouth and sink your teeth into it. Feel the sharp sour taste explode across your tongue. If you're like most people, your mouth is watering. Your salivary glands just responded to a piece of fruit that exists only in your mind. Why? Because to the parts of your brain that control physiology, the vivid, multisensory thought was indistinguishable from the real thing. It ran the simulation and your body obeyed. That's a simple party trick. But that same process scales up in ways that are far more profound. What happens when the simulation you're running is a 5-finger piano exercise? Researchers wanted to answer that exact question. They took a group of people who had never played piano before and split them into 3 groups. The first group was the control. They did nothing. The second group practiced a simple 5-finger piano exercise for 2 hours a day for 5 days straight. The third group received a strange set of instructions. They were told to sit at the piano for 2 hours a day, look at the keys, and just imagine playing the same exercise. They were forbidden from actually moving their fingers. At the end of the 5 days, the results were measured. The control group showed no change as expected. The physical practice group showed significant improvement in skill and measurable changes in the motor cortex of their brain, the area responsible for finger movement. The surprise was the third group. The mental practice group, the people who never actually touched the keys, showed the exact same changes in their motor cortex. Their brain maps had physically rewired. When they were finally allowed to play the piece, their skill improvement was nearly identical to the group that had practiced physically for 10 hours. Their brains learned a physical skill based on a purely internal simulation. This is the mechanism behind phantom limb pain, where an amputee feels an itch in a foot that is no longer there. The brain's map of the body is so powerful, it can override the data coming from the physical senses. A brain can grow stronger without lifting a weight. It can master a melody without making a sound. And it can also learn to be afraid of something that has never happened. This is the engine that drives the placebo effect. When a patient is given a sugar pill and told it's a powerful painkiller, a significant percentage will report a real reduction in pain. Brain scans confirm this. Their brain releases its own endogenous opioids, the body's natural painkillers, purely based on the belief that they have received medicine. The expectation becomes biology. The simulation of healing creates actual healing. The reverse, however, is also true. It's called the nocebo effect. If a doctor tells a patient a procedure will be painful, the patient's reported pain levels are significantly higher than for patients who are told nothing. In clinical trials for new drugs, people in the placebo group sometimes report the exact side effects they were warned the real drug might have. They get headaches, nausea, and fatigue from a simple sugar pill because their brain was handed a negative script and it ran the simulation faithfully. There are documented cases of people dying from the nocebo effect. In one instance, a man who attempted suicide by swallowing a large number of pills was rushed to the hospital with dangerously low blood pressure and a collapsing circulatory system. He was dying. Doctors worked frantically to save him, but nothing worked. Then, a researcher from the clinical trial the man had been in arrived. He informed the medical team that the patient was in the placebo group. The pills he had swallowed were completely inert. They were sugar. The moment the patient was told this, his blood pressure stabilized, his symptoms vanished within minutes. He had almost simulated his own death, so we know a mental script can change our skills, and even our health. But what happens when that script is running so often, it becomes your personality? Think about someone you know who describes themselves as anxious. What are they actually doing? They are running near constant, vivid, multisensory simulations of future negative events. They aren't just thinking, what if I mess up the presentation? They are mentally picturing the room. They are seeing the faces of their colleagues. They are hearing the sound of their own voice faltering. They feel the heat of embarrassment in their chest. They are having a full-blown physiological stress response to an event that is 100% imaginary. Do this enough times, and the neural pathways for anxiety get stronger, faster, and more efficient. It's the mental equivalent of the piano practice. You are rehearsing a state of being. The brain learns what you teach it. If you spend your time mentally rehearsing failure, your brain gets incredibly good at producing the feeling of failure on cue. It becomes your default setting. The same is true for confidence. A confident person isn't someone born without doubt. They are someone who has run more mental simulations of success than of failure. Before the big meeting, they've already rehearsed a positive outcome in their mind's eye 10 times. When the moment arrives, their brain and body are primed for a familiar pattern. They're walking into a memory of a future event they created themselves. The physical world is just catching up to the rehearsal, but this reveals a deep and slightly uncomfortable truth. If you can shape your brain through imagination, why do so many people feel completely stuck? The problem is something called sensory conflict. Your brain trusts your physical senses above all else. When you try to imagine yourself as confident, but your body is slumped in its chair, your breathing is shallow, and you're physically surrounded by the same environment where you felt insecure for years, the simulation fails. There's too much conflicting data. The physical reality overrules the mental image. Your eyes see the same messy desk, your body feels the same old chair, your ears hear the same traffic outside. All of this sensory input reinforces the old identity. You're trying to run a new program on old hardware in a hostile environment. This is why just thinking positive often fails. It's like trying to imagine you're warm while standing in a walk-in freezer. Your body's feedback is screaming a louder, more convincing story. This is also why a change of environment can be so powerful. You've watched a friend move to a new city and come back 6 months later speaking differently, laughing differently, caring about things they never used to mention. Their new environment provided a flood of new sensory data, new sights, new sounds, new social interactions. This external novelty made it easier for a new internal simulation to take hold. There was less sensory conflict. The old identity had no anchor points in the new world. It's much easier to imagine yourself as a new person when everything around you is also new. But you can't always move to a new city. So how do you win the battle between a new imagination and an old reality? The answer is to start with the body. The mind-body connection is a two-way street. We know a stressful thought can make your heart race. It also works in reverse. Forcing your body into a different physical state sends a powerful signal back to the brain that can override a mental pattern. Social psychologist Amy Cuddy's research showed that holding power poses, expansive, open postures, for just 2 minutes measurably increases testosterone and decreases the stress hormone cortisol. It changes your internal chemistry. You can force your body to send a signal of confidence to your brain even when your mind feels uncertain. The physical state primes the mental state. This is why athletes have pre-game rituals. They are using physical actions to trigger a specific mental and emotional state. They are using their body to run a program of readiness. You can do the same. Before a difficult conversation, go for a brisk walk, stand up straight, breathe deeply and slowly. Forcibly relax your shoulders. You are creating sensory conflict. It makes the mental simulation of a successful outcome more believable because the physical data has started to align with it. You're no longer fighting your own body, you're giving your imagination a foundation to build on. And then you can begin to train it like a muscle. This isn't about one-time visualization, it's about repetition. It's about building a library of simulated experiences. Neuroscientists call this Hebbian theory, often summarized as neurons that fire together, wire together. Every time you run a mental simulation, you are strengthening the connections between a specific set of neurons. You are making that pattern more likely to fire in the future. Imagine a grassy field. The first time you walk across it, you leave a faint trail. The 100th time you've worn a deep path. Mental rehearsal is the act of walking that path over and over until it becomes a neurological highway. Your brain will always choose the most efficient path. Your job is to make the path of your desired outcome the most well-worn road in your mind. This requires deliberate, focused practice. Set aside 5 minutes a day. Close your eyes. Don't just think about your goal. Inhabit it. What do you see? What do you hear? What do you feel in your body? Engage as many senses as possible. The more sensory detail you add, the more real the simulation becomes to your brain. You are pre-paving the neural pathways. You are creating a memory of a future that hasn't happened yet. This way, when you face the real situation, your brain doesn't see it as a new, terrifying threat. It recognizes it as a familiar landscape. It accesses the path you've already built. It's executing a preloaded script. This is how you systematically build a new identity. One imagined repetition at a time. The person you will be in 5 years is being decided by the simulations you are running today. The architect of your brain has always been you. You've just been letting the outside world choose the blueprints. Every advertisement you see is an attempt to get you to run a simulation of wanting something. Every news report about a disaster is a simulation of fear. Every social media feed is a flood of tiny competing simulations about status, happiness, and outrage. Your mind has been practicing scripts written by others, strengthening pathways that may not serve you. The brain doesn't judge the quality of the practice, it just learns the routine. This realization is the critical turning point. It moves you from being a passive recipient of your mental state to an active director of it. You can't stop the brain from simulating, that's its core function. But you can become intentional about the rehearsals you choose to run. This is the difference between mindlessly consuming a feed of bad news and deliberately spending 5 minutes rehearsing the feeling of gratitude or accomplishment. Both are forms of mental practice. Both will change your brain. Only one is a choice. Every moment of vivid imagination is a vote cast for a future self. The brain is simply a machine for counting those votes. The final tally becomes your reality. And this same mechanism explains why trying to break a bad habit by focusing on it almost always fails, which is a different kind of uncomfortable.